we are going to learn another way of solving quadratics. So we already know how to solve quadratics with two methods. We already know how to solve by factoring, and we already know how to solve using the quadratic formula. Now we're going to learn to solve quadratics using square root. Okay. Couple quick reminders. When we're solving equations, any equations, we use inverse operations. Okay. Another reminder is that square and square root are inverse operations. What does that mean? It means they do undo each other. Okay, remember what inverse operations are? Like addition and subtraction are inverse operations. They undo each other. Multiplication and division are inverse operations. They undo each other. Square and square root undo each other. Like for example, let's say I have the number 5. Okay, and I say, okay, I'm going to take 5 and I'm going to square it. What do I get? I get 25. So I'm going to take that 25 and I'm going to square root it. What do I get? I get 5, the same number. Why? Because squaring and square rooting are inverse operations. They undo each other. I could do the same thing with any number, right? If I take 3 and I square it, I get 9. If I take the square root of 9, I get 3, the same number. Okay, the same is true for x. If I take x and I square it, okay, I get x squared. If I take x squared and I square root it, I get back x. And there's a little twist to it, okay? You're going to see. We're going to start with, we're going to call it level 1. Okay? I'm going to do some examples. Okay, we're just going to do 2 examples. You're going to see level 1 is pretty straightforward, but you need to really get comfortable with level 1 in order to be able to move on to level 2. Okay, so first example, x squared equals 81. Okay, now remember, we solve equations using inverse operations. Right now, right, like if I had, for example, 3x equals 6, for example, I would say, oh, x is being multiplied, so I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to divide. Here, I say, oh, what's happening to x? X is being squared. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to square root it. Now, what I would normally do is just write the square root sign on both sides. I want you to be able to see in your notes what's actually happening here. So I'm going to rewrite the equation so you can see. This is the original equation. And what I'm doing is I'm writing the square root sign on both sides. Okay. Now, x squared and square rooted is just x. Those are inverse operations. They undo each other. Just like x being multiplied by 3 and divided by 3, they undo each other. Okay. Now, this is where it gets tricky. The square root of 81, what I want to know here is what number multiplied by itself equals 81? And the thing is you might think, well, it's 9. It is 9, but it's also negative 9, right? Negative 9 times negative 9 is 81. Positive 9 times positive 9 is also 81. So this is where we use that plus or minus symbol. Okay, and we've seen this before in the quadratic formula. And if you've noticed, we've seen it before on the square root, because whenever we square root something, there's a positive square root and a negative square root. So we write like this. And then what we do is we separate out those 2 answers. So you would write first the smaller value, comma, the larger value. Okay, so you always write first the smaller value, then the larger value. Okay, one more quick example. Let's say I had x squared equals 144. Okay, I'm going to square root both sides. And once again, I would just usually just write the square root sign on it right here. I'm just going to do this so in your notes you can really see, oh, this was the original equation. We square root both sides. We get x equals plus or minus 12. So that means x could possibly equal negative 12, or it could possibly equal positive 12. Okay, and this is your answer. Okay, and just like we've seen in quadratic equations all along, there are 2 answers. Okay, there are going to be 2 answers because when we square root a number, we get a negative answer and a positive answer. Okay, so go ahead and write here. Write practice, and you're going to do the level 1 practice right down here.